In late 2020, Jack Ma, the charismatic founder of Alibaba and the global face of China's economic miracle, stood before a crowd of global financial elites in Shanghai. He did something few in China ever dare to do. He criticized the system. He called China's state-owned banks pawn shops and claimed the government's outdated regulations were stifling the innovation of the future. Within days, Jack Ma vanished from public view. His $37 billion IPO, which was set to be the largest in human history, was scrapped overnight by a personal order from the top. This wasn't just a corporate dispute or a regulatory hiccup. It was a loud, chilling signal sent to every billionaire, every CEO, and every citizen on the planet. In the new China, the party doesn't just manage the economy. The party is the economy. But what most people missed was that Jack Ma was just the beginning of a much larger and more silent transformation. A transformation that is currently rewriting the rules of global money and power. To understand how we got here, we have to look at a man who spent his teenage years living in a cave, eating thin porridge, and dreaming of a country that would never again be weak. This is the story of how Xi Jinping seized the gears of the world's second-largest economy, and why his next move might be the most dangerous gamble in modern history. In 1969, a 15-year-old boy was sent to a remote village in Shanxi province. His father, a high-ranking official, had been brutally purged by Mao Zedong. The boy, Xi Jinping, went from the luxury of Beijing to a world of manual labor and dirt floors. Most people would have come out of that experience hating the system that betrayed them. Xi did the opposite. He decided to become more red than the reddest of officials. He applied for party membership 10 times before finally being accepted. He learned a brutal lesson early. In a world of chaos, the only thing that matters is total, unwavering control. Fast forward to 2012, and China was at a crossroads. The economy was booming, but it was messy. Corruption was everywhere. Local officials were selling state land like candy. High-speed rail was being built with stolen money and faulty parts. For the Communist Party, this wasn't just a moral problem. It was an existential threat. If the people lost faith in the party's ability to rule fairly, the party would fall, just like the Soviet Union did in 1991. When Xi took the stage as general secretary, he didn't just want to manage the boom. He wanted to clean the house with a ferocity never seen before. He launched an anti-corruption campaign that was entirely unprecedented in its scale. Over 1.5 million officials were punished. Generals, ministers, and local bosses, people who thought they were too big to fail, were suddenly in handcuffs. But as the smoke cleared, observers noticed something curious. Every single person purged was also a political rival of Xi Jinping. Under the guise of cleaning the house, Xi was actually reinforcing the walls. He was centralizing every lever of economic power into one room. But as he tightened his grip on the government, he realized the biggest threat wasn't coming from within the party. It was coming from the skyscrapers of Hangzhou and Shenzhen. For decades, the deal in China was simple. Stay out of politics, and the government will let you get as rich as you want. This created giants like Tencent, Meituan, and Alibaba. They were the national champions. But by 2020, these companies were becoming more powerful than the ministries meant to regulate them. They had more data on Chinese citizens than the police. They were moving into banking, lending billions through apps without the safety checks required of traditional banks. Then came the Common Prosperity Decree. Xi began talking about a China where the gap between the rich and the poor was narrowed, not through charity, but through rectification. Suddenly, the national champions were under fire. The government launched anti-monopoly probes. They banned for-profit tutoring overnight, wiping out a $100 billion industry and the life savings of thousands of investors who thought it was a safe bet. They limited gaming hours for children to 3 hours a week, claiming it was spiritual opium. Imagine if the US government decided tomorrow that Amazon was too big, forced it to donate half its profits to a social fund, and then banned Minecraft because it was unproductive. The message was clear. Profits are a privilege granted by the state, not a right earned by the market. If your business doesn't serve the Chinese dream, your business doesn't exist. This sent a shockwave through global markets. Trillions of dollars in market value evaporated. But for Xi, this was a necessary price. He wasn't trying to destroy the economy, he was trying to pivot it. He wanted to move away from soft tech like social media and delivery apps and toward hard tech, semiconductors, AI, and green energy. He wants a China that can survive a total divorce from the West. And to do that, he needs to make sure every yuan is working toward that goal. But how do you make 1.4 billion people follow a single plan without a single person stepping out of line? The answer lies in a system that sounds like science fiction, but is already very real. Imagine a score, not a credit score that determines if you can get a house, but a social credit score that determines if you are a good person. In China, this isn't just one number. It's a web of surveillance and data. If you jaywalk, if you play too many video games, if you post a disrespectful comment about the government on WeChat, your score drops. What happens when it drops? You can't buy a ticket for a high-speed train. You can't book a hotel. Your kids might be rejected from the best schools. In some cities, if a dishonest debtor calls you, your phone plays a special ringtone to warn you that the person you're talking to is untrustworthy. This is the ultimate form of economic control. By linking your behavior to your wallet and your mobility, the state creates a self-regulating society. You don't need a policeman on every corner if the fear of losing your lifestyle keeps you in check. But Xi knows that domestic control isn't enough if China is still dependent on the rest of the world. He needs the world to be dependent on China. This is the Belt and Road Initiative, often called the New Silk Road. It's the most ambitious infrastructure project in history. China has spent nearly $1 trillion building ports in Sri Lanka, railways in Africa, and bridges in Europe. On the surface, it's about trade, but look closer at the hidden mechanics. When a developing nation can't pay back the massive Chinese loans used to build these projects, China doesn't just send a late notice, they take the keys. In Sri Lanka, when the government defaulted, China secured a 99-year lease on a strategic deep-sea port. Xi is building a global network where the trade routes of the 21st century all lead to Beijing. He is creating a parallel world where the US dollar isn't the only currency that matters, and where Western sanctions lose their teeth. But there's a crack in the foundation, a crack that is growing faster than the party can patch it. For 40 years, China's growth was fueled by two things: people and property. But today, China is running out of both. The population is shrinking. The one-child policy has left a legacy of a rapidly aging society, with fewer workers to support them. And then there's the property trap. In China, 70% of household wealth is tied up in real estate. For years, developers like Evergrande built cities that no one lived in, fueled by endless debt. It was a giant Ponzi scheme that worked as long as prices kept going up. But Xi decided to pop the bubble. He introduced the 3 red lines to stop the debt-fueled growth. He said houses are for living in, not for speculation. The result? The real estate market collapsed. Evergrande defaulted. Thousands of middle-class families who paid for apartments that were never built started mortgage strikes, refusing to pay for empty concrete shells. This is the dark side of absolute control. When you control everything, you are also responsible for everything. In a democracy, when the market crashes, you blame the market. In Xi's China, when the market crashes, you blame the party. The social contract, we give you growth, you give us your freedom, is being tested for the first time. If the growth stops, what happens to the freedom? So, what does this mean for you? Whether you're an investor in New York, a factory worker in Germany, or a student in Singapore, China's economic control is already affecting your life. It affects the price of the phone in your pocket, the stability of the stocks in your 401k, and the geopolitical tension that could lead to the next great conflict. Xi Jinping has bet everything on a simple idea, that an authoritarian state can be more efficient, more innovative, and more stable than a messy democracy. He has spent a decade tearing down the open China of the past and building a fortress China of the future. But history is full of leaders who thought they could control the wind. China is currently at its most powerful point in 200 years, but it is also at its most fragile. Xi has removed the pressure valves, the dissenting voices, the free media, the independent billionaires that usually warn a leader when they are heading for a cliff. As we move into the late 2000s, the world is watching a high-stakes experiment. Can a single man, with the help of the most advanced surveillance system ever built, steer an $18 trillion economy through a demographic collapse and a global trade war? If he succeeds, he will have created a new model for the world, one where the individual is a cog in a massive state-run machine. If he fails, the splash will be felt by every person on this planet. The era of casual economics in China is over. The era of controlled economics has begun, and the world is just now realizing that we aren't just spectators. We are all invested in the outcome. The question isn't whether China will become the world's largest economy. The question is, what kind of world will it be when it gets there? In the end, power isn't just about how much you have. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice to keep it. And Xi Jinping has shown that, for the party, no price is too high, not even the future itself. Consider the silence of Jack Ma not as a single event, but as a preview of a world where the market's invisible hand is replaced by the visible, heavy fist of the state. As the global supply chain shifts and the boundaries of digital sovereignty are redrawn, the average person must ask themselves a difficult question. If the global economy becomes China-centric, are we prepared for the trade-offs in our own financial freedom? We are witnessing the birth of a new economic superpower that values stability over growth and compliance over creativity. It is a world where the state knows your bank balance, your browsing history, and your loyalty before you even realize you've made a choice. The rise of Xi Jinping isn't just a story about China. It's a story about the end of the global consensus that free markets lead to free societies. We are entering a fragmented era where two different versions of capitalism are competing for the future. One is messy, volatile, and democratic. The other is orderly, surgical, and absolute. As the skyscraper lights of Shanghai continue to glow, they mask a structural tension that could define the 21st century. Will the centralization of everything be China's greatest strength or its ultimate undoing? The answer won't just be found in GDP reports or trade statistics, but in the quiet choices of 1.4 billion people deciding whether the security promised by the state is worth the cost of their agency. The machine is built, the sensors are live, and the operator has no intention of letting go of the controls. The only thing we know for certain is that in the game of global economics, the rules have changed forever and the house always wins, as long as the house is in Beijing.